Man had anxiety about drought, famine, disease, violence, all sorts of stuff. The way you alleviate these anxieties is to provide an answer about how to solve them. And there are two men who provided some sort of an answer. You had the scientist and the storyteller. The scientist was mealy-mouthed, uncertain, worked in probability and odds ratios. If you keep clean, you are less likely to get sick. The storyteller is charismatic and certain. If you sacrifice a goat, you will not get sick. The gods will prevent you from getting sick. And often he acts more certain because he actually is certain. Maybe the storyteller had visions as a result of heat stroke or some trauma, or just has some brain miswiring. So be he a liar or be he lunatic, the storyteller typically wins because he's better at alleviating anxiety. If you sacrifice a goat to keep disease away, then you can just sacrifice a goat, and that's all you can do to keep disease away. If you get disease even after sacrificing the goat, well, then that's what God wanted. And this alleviates the anxiety, because even if you get disease, well, you did all you can do, and there's no reason to be anxious. And this is better than the scientist's explanation, which at the time was, there seems to be a correlation between uncleanliness and disease. Though it's not absolute, you could be better off if you stop pooping in your water supply. This will require the building of a new place to store our waste, and then in about 3 years we can determine its effectiveness as long as no waste seeps into the groundwater, and that there weren't some other factors, and, you see, that's uncertain. That doesn't take care of the problem, quote, take care of the problem in an absolute way. In science, there are a bajillion explanations, and you take imperfect evidence and come to the best conclusions if you can come to any conclusions at all. This is not good for alleviating anxiety in the short run because it provides no comforting answer. The idea that there is a higher power that cares about you and knows how to care about you is a much more comforting answer. And this battle of worldview between scientists and storytellers is still around. And of course, people mostly still fall for the storyteller. Man has anxiety about the plight of the poor. To alleviate his anxiety, he offers a portion of his paycheck to a higher power, the state, which promises to solve the problem of poorness, or at least take care of it, or cover it up, or do something about it. And if the state fails, again, what happens? Well, you sacrificed your product, the product of your labor, to a higher power, and you no longer are morally culpable, and your anxiety is relieved. Even if your sacrifice doesn't do anything, and even if you know that your sacrifice is not going to do anything, you are no longer morally culpable by virtue of the fact that you sacrificed at all. The scientists will look at this situation and say, there is no higher power, and you cannot just sacrifice to fictitious entities and expect problems to be solved, and that you are not moral just for sacrificing if you know that the problem is not going to be solved. And and despite overwhelming empirical evidence that income security doesn't work and that public education is just a morally abominable catastrophe, and the state is just a ghastly parade of failures, individuals still cling onto this higher power because it's comforting. Now, often a religion will be exposed as a sham. Religions that say, sacrifice this and you will get rain, die out over time because people begin to realize that the sacrifices and the rain don't correlate. It takes a bit longer because you have a few very religious, you have the hardcore religious people who desperately need the belief to relieve their anxiety because they lack the ability to self-soothe. When this happens, those religions are... but when they are phased out, those religions are unfortunately replaced by more esoteric, less verifiable religions, where the rewards are much less explicit. And eventually, and this happens over and over again, and eventually you have religions that don't offer any rewards at all. They just claim that if you follow Jesus, you will get all sorts of rewards after you die. Okay? We don't offer anything right now, but when you die, oh boy, it'll be just swell. Trust us. And it's wonderful because they have nothing to prove, they have nothing to verify. All the rewards come when you're dead. See? Religions that say, follow these economic policies and you will get growth, die out over time because people begin to realize that the most productive economic policy is always no policy. It takes a bit longer because you have, the very religious who desperately need the belief to relieve their anxiety because they lack the ability to self-motivate. And they need a way to justify their non-production. When this happens, those religions aren't, and when these religions are phased out, these religions are unfortunately replaced by a more esoteric religion where the rewards are just kicked down the road. They'll say Social Security won't go bankrupt for another 50 years or whatever. Okay, and you put money into Social Security now, you'll get it when you retire. Will you? Meh. And eventually, you have religions that don't offer rewards at all. Okay, they just claim that sacrificing for the poor is moral, even if it doesn't help them. Okay. And if you don't follow God, you'll go to hell. I mean, if you don't follow the state, you'll go to anarchy. You'll have anarchy. The big secret, of course, is that it's all just a runaround. So many of us have this image in our mind of these wise men who know so much more than we can ever dream of. But if you ever meet a politician, you see someone who's incredibly vapid and vain, and who has such a hard time taking positions because they need to be flexible enough to change based on lobbyists' desires. That's why they like platitudes that can be interpreted, and can go back in time and interpret them. This whole illusion of the state is propped up, of course, with incantations, such as the Pledge of Allegiance and the Constitution, the Bible, the Gospel, the Constitution, the pageant about the founding fathers, the phases on the cross, prayer at the cult temples at Washington, D.C. And that's it. That's what it is. The Federal Reserve works day to day, and you got guys in a room saying, all right, this is what the market's doing, we need to do this to the money supply, but has no direct incentive to get things right. And of course we all know Congress is just a hollow and vain dog and pony show, and the Supreme Court recently ruled 5-4. Okay, you have the Supreme Court ruling 5-4. That's that's obviously that's just people. If you're gonna 4 people disagree with the other 5, that's not an authority. That's just people arguing. Okay, and the Supreme Court recently ruled that the U.S. courts have a global jurisdiction based on what they said about terrorists, about inmates at Guantanamo getting the right to trial in the United States. Now, I'm not a big fan of Guantanamo. I'm not a big fan of troops all around the world, but giving combatants around the world the right to a trial in the United States, that's basically global jurisdiction. Okay, and you have roads built in districts with clout. You have money going to districts with clout, and you could write your you can write your congressman about it, but they just laugh at you if they ever even saw it. And it's really gross, and it's kind of heart-wrenching that so many people put their faith in this stuff. Nobody is managing the highways. Okay, there's just a bunch of little institutions doing their own thing, lobbying for their own funds. All right. Oh, road construction. That must be part of the plan. Oh, I have to go to school today. That must be part of the plan. Oh, I can only go to the bathroom during class once a semester. That must be part of the plan. Oh, I must give you 30% of my income, otherwise I will be thrown in prison. That must be part of the plan. There is no plan. Okay? The road builders all just lobby to get their cut of the pie. The welfares lobby to get their cut. The militarists lobby to get their cut. And on and on and on. And the Senate makes deals and fields candidates who can best spin this crap into something coherent for the masses who still believe in some sort of a higher power.